Hello and welcome. This is a man called Jay, and you are watching Africans in London TV. Yes, a channel that is dedicated to bring you news and entertainment about the diaspora people. So now, I have been meeting, and I'm still meeting a lot of people in the diaspora from all different kinds of backgrounds. I meet politicians, I meet activists, I meet musicians, you name it, I do. And for tonight, you are going to be watching a man called Berhanu from Ethiopia. This man is a mobilizer, he's a political activist. And as you know what is taking place in the northern part of Ethiopia, to be specific, Tigray, he is being very active in mobilizing people in demonstrations, and I've also invited him to come on AIL TV and some of the programs we do called Security Update. And now, this program is called One-on-One, because sometimes when you are talking to people on programs collectively, or you have got 3 or 4 guests, you don't really get to ask questions, or you don't get to know the people, who they are and what they do. I just want to get inside of those people. Now, I visited Berhanu in his residence here in South London, and I wanted to know what makes him drive, or why does he have got so much drive in whatever he does. But anyway, look, I am not going to waste so much time. For now, enjoy One-on-One and Berhanu.
Hello everybody, I'm Berhanu. My background is academics, humanitarian activities, studying and working, teaching, and writing books. The book I have written is on Meles, the late Meles Zenawi, who was a Prime Minister who brought Ethiopia from doldrums to whereby the whole world recognized as one of the progressive and developing nations in the last 2.5 decades. He was the leader of TPLF. He was my schoolmate, and I understand his mentality, his ideology, his thinking, and I felt that his ideas have to be brought up to the public domain. What economic democracy has brought, what democracy means when you were in high school, what some individuals are against it, unjustly. To dispel their misunderstanding, I felt I should bring these ideas to the public domain. That's the very reason why I wrote that book. Oh, that's for nearly 40 years ago. Rather for 50 years now. I think it's a long time ago when we were teenagers. Rather a participant in humanitarian issues rather than political activist. Wherever there are issues that would fringe the benefit and the well-being of the humanity, wherever they are, I raise my voice and I share my concerns, be it in Middle East, Far East, or in Africa, or elsewhere. So I would call myself as a participant of humanitarian issues, as a permanent member or life member of Red Cross and Rotary Club. I can't, affiliate myself to politics, although I had sometimes. that experience, both in Ethiopia as well as in the UK. One cannot avoid, if you are in the boat, you sail with the crowd. Sometimes you could bump against politicians, you could go along with politicians. Once we are in a society, no one can avoid politics anyway. In the Western Hemisphere, what we know democracy is the right to speak, the right to talk, the right to criticize the Prime Minister or the leader of the country, the right of press. It's all to do with politics and thinking. But I myself and the late Prime Minister, what we have been taught was there is another different form of democracy. And that is the oldest one, which the Western intellectuals may not recognize, so to speak, is economic democracy. Once people have got economic democracy, the political strife and conflicts will be reduced. All the conflicts we see now across the world is due to lack of economic democracy. Economic democracy brings the well-being of the citizens, wherever they are, in equal footing. All need housing, shelter, all need clothes and food, all need safety and security. If we can allocate and provide this to all human beings, then the political democracy could be resolved without any other means of resorting to realize them, say by war or conflict. So all the very cause for all the conflicts we see across the world is lack of economic democracy, not lack of political democracy to speak, especially in the northern and southern, the Western Hemisphere. I can say in short, he was Robin Hood of Ethiopia, defending the poor, fighting for economic democracy, an intelligent guy, highly and deeply thinker, highly regarded by his people, fair-minded, honest, and political shrewd, who knows and communicates with anyone at any level, with any background, talented and articulated. In fact, he spoke better English than I did, than I do even now, although he hasn't been to England as long as I have been. Well-read, voracious reader, who can change, understand dynamic situations in a very short time, quick to understand and quick to act. That's how he is known, in Ethiopia. He brought Ethiopia from 1 university to 45 universities. When he took over the Ethiopian government, there was only 300 kilometer asphalt road, but he brought it to 30,000 kilometers across the country. We had a few hospitals, but now 100 private schools, hospitals, and thousands doctors, nurses, including the outstanding WHO director, Dr. Tedros Adhanom, was a product of Meles's economic and democratic policy. He changed the country from poverty-stricken, famine-stricken country to one of the most developing countries. His left linking, his left tilting ideas, he changed them into the pragmatic, effective, and affecting policy, like Angela Merkel did when she came from East Germany, and how she has changed Western Germany. You can see it.
Okay, good.
He created so many millionaires in such a short time. He brought democracy in a real sense by establishing constitution. He brought into political domain those who have been marginalized minorities. He brought the rule of law into practice. When he took over the government in 1991, he didn't wantonly, summarily executed all the ex-military junta leaders. He brought them to the due legal procedure, to the court of law, and they were sentenced accordingly. Unlike in other African countries, when there is a shift of power, the incumbent usually wipes out the previous leaders. He was a member of the TPLF. I didn't credit him willy-nilly out of love or affection, out of bias or special prejudice towards him. No, it's objectively, not only me, many credible, same professors, same politicians, common sense and fair-minded journalists has credited him with what he has done. Not only within Ethiopia, even outside Ethiopia. Many politicians do recognize him, that he was one of the brainy, progressive, democratic, easy person to communicate with, to deal with any business. Time will tell. In fact, politically speaking, I was in the one which is opposite to TPLF. But as a British, we say, give the devil its due. I'm telling what I have objectively discovered, learned out what he has done. If willy-nilly I have to oppose him or discredit him, in view of my political involvement, my previous political involvement, I would have said otherwise. That this is speaking the truth as self-made intellectual. Nothing else but the truth, which can be verified by anyone who is sane and fair-minded person. No way. In fact, before we jump to Abiy, we need to discover the source of Meles, the TPLF. We need to understand what TPLF was, what TPLF did, what TPLF is doing now. Unless we understand the party that created, that evolved Meles, then it will be difficult to understand the politics, the present politics. So if I may, I will take you back further to understand TPLF. TPLF is considered as, by its adversaries, as a secessionist political group. As many other people who are fair-minded say, TPLF is an Ethiopianist, progressive, left-handed, popular, rational group, political group. It was formed by university students that evolved, that created, the name and the progress Ethiopia achieved in the last 20 years by individuals like Ambassador Mr. Siyum, who is well known for his diplomacy, who is well recognized a diplomat across the Western or Eastern Hemisphere. People like himself had carried forward Ethiopia as it should, sticking and adhering to non-aligned foreign policy, with open-mindedness to pragmatic economic development. They changed Ethiopia from poverty line it had, say, they have halved it. The details I have given you, the information they brought, is innumerous. One of the things, the landmark, the historical legacy of TPLF is the building of the Grand Renaissance Dam. It was initiated by TPLF. Still, I want to go back to the TPLF history. I've said it about its achievement, but what about its negative side, say? Its shortcomings, let's say. TPLF might have been, a closed club, operating with its own, niche, who had a meeting of mind, which excluded, even Tigrayan academics or intellectuals, which is applicable in any political system. Here in 10 down the street, we have Eton clubs. When a cabinet is formed, the prime ministers always pull people they know well of. The Tigrayans were not offended. The Tigrayan academics and intellectuals were not offended by TPLF being closed enough and keeping its niche. As I said earlier on, we have discussed, and I've discussed, the positive sides, the credits that deserves, TPLF. Whereas on its shortcomings, I'm coming to it. It was less participatory for elites. It was not open for many elites. However, although the elites of the Tigrayans were equally excluded from the other Amhara elites, the Tigrayan elites and intellectuals, they didn't mind because their work was praiseworthy. What they were doing was laudable and good. So we recognized, we were not offended because we were not given position, nor were that we were not, having a fair share in the political system. Whereas the elites of the other tribes, especially the Amhara, felt excluded, felt undermined, felt they didn't get what they deserve. Especially having had a long history of ruling the country, when now this minority, when they come to power, doing so many changes, doing a lot of work, and bringing a lot of progress and change in the country, they felt, wow, where are we? It's all the generals, the doctors, and the ministers are Tigrayans. They felt, they perceived. In actual fact, during all this time, there were only 3 Tigrayans, as I mentioned in my book. The rest ministers were from other tribes, mainly Amharic speakers. There were more Tigrayans actually under Haile Selassie, Emperor Haile Selassie and Derg, including the vice president of the Nazi dictator Mengistu Haile Mariam was a Tigrayan. Then at that time it was not an issue. The issue came after the rise of national consciousness, which started in Yugoslavia and elsewhere. People have started to come to question as their national identity, having their fair share in the cake of the land. Many people, many academics think nationality issue was introduced by Stalin. That's wrong actually. It was introduced by President Woodward Wilson in 1941. But you can see it in any books, the 14 points suggested by Woodward Wilson, the American president. Any nationality, any tribe, any ethnic has the right to administer itself. Is enshrined in the United Nations Charter. This was not shared, understood by their other elites. Even if they don't know, if they had common sense. No tribe, no nationality, no ethnic minority would be subjugated to be ruled by anyone. It won't create, productive politics. It will create negativity. It will create conflict. It will create war. That's where we are heading to. Was TPLF's greatest achievement that has been applauded by all African leaders, including Museveni, was in introducing federalism. Many African intellectuals came to see how it is practiced, how it is applied. How could you bring all these ethnic minorities to have a fair share in the affair of the state and be recognized like human beings, which they never had in the previous government? But that, in any class society, where so many people could be happy, there will be always a few people who will not be happy with whatever political policy you champion or you practice. This is natural. Whichever political party comes to power in UK or anywhere else in Europe, there will be people who will be benefiting and there will be people who might lose. The latter, to administer their own local affairs. Previously, no ethnic minority was allowed to speak their own language, to use it in a press or in books. The TPLF said, you have the right to use your own language, to respect your culture, to teach your children with your own language. Previously, everybody had to be forced to speak, to learn Amharic, and to have an Amharic speaker judge. And when there is a court trial, there need to be an interpreter. But this was cut off. When the Tigrayans came to power, they didn't force any nationality or nation to dress like the Tigrayans, to eat like the Tigrayans, to have their hair configured like the Tigrayans, or to dance like the Tigrayan music, or to tune to Tigrayan music. They recognized everyone's culture as equal. If you don't recognize me as a friend on equal par, would I be befriended with you? Would I come and enjoy and visit with you? No way. That's what the PLF did. Whereas the previous elites were ruling the country, they said this is undermining the unity and the strength of the nation. That was the camouflage, the cover, the whitewash, the cover up for their loss of power control over the rest, which has been for so many 100 years. Very good. TPLF, I said, was created and formed by progressive individuals like the ambassador, the late Ambassador Meles Zenawi, who was cold-bloodedly shot in a close range last November. Who was outstanding about his outstanding diplomacy. The whole world knows, the whole political elements of the world know, and his friends, and Meles including. Condoleezza Rice, and Gordon Brown, Tony Blair, refer to what they said about him. These progressive individuals came together, and 1981, they get rid the army force of the Ethiopian operating in Tigray. And the fighters told him, now we get rid of Amhara, or the central government force, so we have to start building our nation, our land, our Tigray. No, we haven't to stop there. Even if we try to build the Tigray only, tomorrow they will come and attack us. That's how we convinced the army. So they progressed towards the center, to Addis Ababa, by rallying small groups who were operating, and the big groups of the Oromo. When they took over with the help of the Western intervention like Cohen, you remember 1991, they could have taken the power, solely. They didn't do that. They invited all fighting groups. There were about 17 national fronts, including those who have been challenging them, adverse, groups. They invited them to share power and draft constitution and to start a democratic transition. So they followed all political and legal procedure to come to power. They didn't rely on gun. The one they have money to throw the government with. No, they use political and legal procedures to come to power. Once they come to power as well, they started to share, devolve power to the periphery rather than maintain it all in their own hands. It's very hard to say, any political group is in a group of angels. There could be mistakes somewhere here and there. They were a bit selfish not to share, their power to every elite probably. But this happens everywhere. Say, let's take, corruption. If they say the TPLF was corrupt, so were the rest. If you think the number of 1,000 prisoners who have been put in prison, 1,000 due to corruption, 6% of them might be Tigrayans, but 94,000, 90% would be from others. Corruption comes with the development, with capitalism. They are the ones who created so many millionaires. This competition created animosity. They think the Tigrayans helped undue influence to bring more Tigrayan millionaires. But actually, the number of millionaires from other tribes, especially the Amhara, far more higher in percentage-wise than the Tigrayans. In fact, let me tell you, once Meles approached us here when he came to London. Can you help us headhunt non-Tigrayan expert who could work with us? And we told him off. Why do you worry about ethnicity? Just appoint on merit basis. Oh no, they are blaming us. Too many Tigrayans are taking over that post and this post. He tried to distribute this. This is why he brought his deputy prime minister from other ethnic minority, not from Tigray. This is how he accelerated the present prime minister and the chief staff, the present chief staff, to the level where they are now. Yes, indeed. He's from other tribe. He was politically inducted, educated, accelerated to be a colonel at the same time as he claims to be, to have some academic exercise. TPLF was not run, the TPLF didn't take all the power in the center. It's shared to the Oromos, it's shared to the Amharas, it's shared to the other ethnic minorities, although there were some left out. But the federal house was composed of equal numbers of ethnicity. And the House of Commons were elected in the proportional. And budget was allocated in the proportionality of the population. TPLF didn't take any more than anyone else. The corruption issue is perception. Let me tell you one instance. There is one main road, one main avenue in Addis Ababa. When you were walking, asking, the local people, whose is this building? Whose is that building? And everybody was saying that it's the Tigrayans, the Tigrayans, the Tigrayans. And then group of diaspora, some with the United Nations, some university went to the urban development minister and asked if he can give us a rough idea about the ownership on this main road. And we find out to be 9%. The 91% was owned by central people from the center, especially with the Amhara. The rivalry has come from Adam and Eve, as I said, we were chatting, from Cain and Abel. And capitalism creates rivalry, animosity. You know how much companies, they spy each other and steal their brands. One doctor, let me tell you, I have mentioned it in my book. We were chatting when we were traveling in the tube. And he was negating everything. He was, condemning what's going on in Ethiopia. This is 4 or 5 years ago, before I published the book. And I asked him, are you saying that there is no any development in Tigray, in Ethiopia? Well, that's true. There is a development, there is a change, there is a progress. But the annoying thing is that all this progress and civilization, all this achievement has come as a result of Tigrayans. I regret that, he said. There it tells. It tells all. And he's a doctor, and he is talking in the West civilized country where he is respected like anyone else here. But he doesn't recognize a minority coming to do what the job. You know what I answered him? Why do you care about the person's background? As far as you can get what the service you deserve from him. Why not be a donkey come sit on the chair, on the throne, or a camel? If it provides the service you are wishing for, let them do it. I remember a Nigerian doctor came and said the same thing. If they have achieved so much in such a short time, I would invite them to come to Lagos, Abuja, and show us. Why do you care about their minority? Why do you care about their background? Are they doing good thing or not? Before we go to the solution, we should know the genesis of the war, how it came about. Firstly, I think.
Yes, please go on.
Okay, in 2018, some people, think Abiy Ahmed will bring change, will bring power transformation, democratic transformation, unlike what TPLF was doing. The war, some of them believe that it started on the 3rd of November. War doesn't start in one day unless you are too naive to recognize that. To start war, it needs building a series of events. It's all after a series of events that has accumulated that lead to the last stroke. The war against TPLF was running for the last 18 years. The fact that there are minorities who have come from the north, it was taken as undeservedly. The power, they said, belongs to the traditional rulers, the elites. And TPLF is accused for being ethnocentrist. It has never been, and it is not. Some intellectuals are accused for being pro-TPLF. We don't care what happens to TPLF. It is the people who are concerned, the civil people. Two powers could fight for power, but what's going on now is not a fight between two powerful people. It's between people and people. The Tigrayan people are subjugated to genocidal war. Women have been raped, thousands. People have been starving for the last 6 months. Farmers have been prevented from plowing their land. Grains have been destroyed. Fields have been burnt. Not only by the national army, but by enemy force from Eritrea. Okay? Before this war started, Tigrayans have been chased, forced to leave from other parts of Ethiopia. But TPLF didn't react accordingly, although it had the power. When TPLF found out it's no more popular in the center, it gracefully handed over power and retreated to its own region, unlike in any African country. When one group loses power, never and rarely give its hand easily. It will fight to the last drop. The TPLF leadership recognized the need to continue the democracy and the economic progress they have started, so they retreated north. And even that very night, November 3rd, when the war started, Abiy and his friends and colleagues and his support, they say, TPLF took the initiative to attack the National Defense Force. That's not true. That very night, Abiy sent 2 Antonovs, which can be verified, and there are so many other evidences as well other than this. 2 Antonovs, one filled with 300 commandos, and one filled with mounted jeeps, BR mounted jeeps. So that to wipe them out in one go when they had a meeting. He was communicating with them that they should stay together in the meeting and rectify the minute about the note exchange that very day. There is an evidence, video evidence. Before the war, that very war started, the Eritrean soldiers were already in the border. The military chief staff of Sudan confirmed on the 1st of November that he was told by Abiy that he is going to start war and that they shouldn't allow the TPLF to escape through Sudan. The preparation was going on. There are videos and telephone hacked information, satellite pictures, videos. The late security head who died last week was communicating with the soldiers who's encroaching on the Tigray border, what they should do next before the war started. I had a long political experience both in the UK as well as in Ethiopia. I have been Ethiopianist, and I hope I will continue if things get better. I am sitting on the juxtaposition. I belong to Amhara through my father and Tigrayan mother. I have been brought up by an economist, an educationalist, humanitarian gentleman from Stratford-upon-Avon, who was a board member of Eritrean Relief Society, a white gentleman. Following his suit, I never had any prejudice against anyone. If this gentleman loves me, likes me, and helps me, and brings me up to this level, why shouldn't I like and love and care about any humanity for that matter? Disaster, disappointed, sad, shocked, traumatized. Sadly, those people who ran away from Tigray, who ran away the war front, who ran away the disaster and mayhem in Tigray to Addis Ababa and center, are imprisoned. From the frying pan to the fire. And instead of welcoming and looking after Ethiopianists like myself, like Getachew who is now in the jungle, and instead of looking after those Tigrayans who are living in Addis, and instead of looking after this army, they have been profiled and imprisoned for no reason other than their tribal background, ethnic background. Is this fair? Is this right? Those people who have been keeping peace in Sudan have been subjugated into all sorts of harassment. Embarrassing, traumatizing, disappointing. This needs tapping into history again. You know, Ethiopia is the island of Christianity. That region is surrounded by Muslim countries, and this had created, so much conflict, so many wars in the past. On top of the water issue, the Egyptians believe that water is God-given, their own God-given property. No one else should share. And this has been, worsened and complicated by the invasion of the African scramble, by the Western coming and demarking and marking and reshaping the borders. Now, they created Eritrea even as a result of that, which was part of Ethiopia. In every aspect of it you can think of. When the Italians came and created, carved out Eritrea out of Ethiopia as their own colonial state, And the consequence of 30 years of war has come as a result of the scramble for Africa. And the Egyptians' argument is based on the Western colonizers' narration. It could have been settled with an African narration, with common sense politics, with sharing the culture of Africa. That's not true. Oddly enough now, what Abiy Ahmed has done is he brought an enemy force to annihilate his own people. While he has a problem with a neighboring country that has encroached in its sovereignty, took over 70 kilometers of its land, he's sleeping on it. And he wants to eliminate his own people, the Tigrayans, rather than fend off the aggressor, the one who took its land, the one who violated its sovereignty. Now, sadly, we have seen what never have seen in this world. A government inviting an enemy country to annihilate its own people, to suffer its own people, to subjugate its own people, to colonize its own people, so to speak. No African country have come across begging European country to colonize its own people. Abiy Ahmed came the first one to be so. To make matters worse, after winning Peace Prize in 1990. In such a complicated situation, would you think of any reasonable exit strategy? No. The situation is complicated, unheard of, and it needs very complicated, unheard of solution. As elsewhere in Africa, especially Ethiopian politics is based on the winners and eliminating the opposition, eliminating the adverse. There was no culture of negotiation and dialogue. Until one of them loses power, until one of them are eliminated, there is no solution in African politics, as you well know. If there were common sense, if there was fear of God as he preaches, it would make sense to sacrifice an individual than sacrifice a population, 1 million population. It would make sense one to lose power, one individual to lose power, rather than thousands and thousands and 1 million people die, eliminated, killed, harassed, starved to death, women raped for the sake of one person's pride. In the given circumstance, unless one of them beat and eliminate, there is no possible solution. In other parts of the continent, in other parts of the earth, negotiation and dialogue are the practices of political, maneuver. Such culture doesn't exist in Ethiopia. As I said earlier on, the previous democratic federal system, power didn't lie under an individual's hand. It was shared. In fact, the leadership, TPLF, was known and transferred to other parts of Ethiopia, consensual management. Everything was decided by committees, consensual understanding. The committee, the fronts have to agree and decide. Without agreement of the committee, nothing was done by the individual, including the very popular and powerful Prime Minister Meles. Nothing was practiced, implemented without the approval and discussion of the committee. It has never happened, that was not the issue. It has never been. We were against Meles, Colonel Mengistu Haile Mariam. Not because he was from Oromo or because he was Negroid, like the Amharas always say, his Negroid feature, he was not good for ruling status. No, I myself, my colleagues at that time with the National Political Party, we were against his political policy, not his personality. Under Meles, it was not on his policy, it was on his political background. With Abiy, we didn't fall out because he has come from the Oromo. We warmly welcomed him, including myself. But what he is saying and what he is preaching is opposite what he had promised us. He's been always wailing and crying and denouncing any form of aggression, any form of violation, any form of harassment, and all killings on all other tribes. This time, the last 6 months, he was muzzled not to speak his mind. Especially, he said, the atrocity committed in Tigray, he underlined on that, because he has seen so many awful, horrible, as you have seen it on BBC and CNN, people being shot and thrown to cliff, 10,000 women raped, iron, hot iron and nail stuffed to women's genitalia. This sort of atrocity have never anywhere in Rwanda or even in Ashwis. This is what he highlighted. The atrocity, the horrendous crime committed in Tigray is unheard of anywhere else. But he has never affiliated himself to any tribe, although he belongs to Tigray. He's been always a father figure for anyone. A father figure or a father doesn't make any distinction and discrimination between his own children. I've got 2 daughters, and I never make distinction and differentiation among my daughters. I look after them equally. As a father of the society, as a father of the church, he denounced all forms of violence against anyone else. But the last 6 months was horrendous, never heard of anywhere in the world. The things has happened. Farmers being prevented from plowing, grain silos being burnt, water being poured into stores, food stores, ready-made food even thrown, sand and soil being put dumped into silos, grain silos, cows, oxen being killed like human beings, children. The greatest losers are the Amhara elites. I don't blame Abiy because he is delusionist. He has a dream to be a king, the 7th king. Those people who could come to their sense and come out with pragmatic, a reasonable solution were the Amhara elites. Now, the worst part of this war is the cord, the trust between the ethnic minorities is broken for good. Even people like myself who are eternal Ethiopianists and many other Tigrayans, how could they trust anymore the Amhara elites? Although there is no animosity between people and people, but the elites are who creating all these rifts, all this gap, all this chasm, all this animosity. With this animosity, do you think any force will bring together? No. Whoever wins the battle will take the power and the fate of the land, the fate of the country. Then the Tigrayans will hibernate for a certain time until it's favorable time to stand and revenge again. The vicious circle will continue. Unless and otherwise, the international community brings an amicable solution as it did in Yugoslavia. In Yugoslavia, they killed each other, Croatians, Bosnians, Herzegovina, you remember all this. The international community, especially the European Union, intervened and separated them. If you keep on, fighting, if living together brings you animosity and hatred and killing each other, why not you have their own niche, your own administration? The umbilical cord is broken beyond repair. The confidence, the social cohesion is broken. What the Ethiopian forces did, what the Amhara militia did in northern west of Tigray, the killing, mass killing, has up to so many people, including people from the center. What has happened in Oromia even itself has broken the hearts of so many mothers. How could you convince a mother who lost her husband, her child, her cousin, her nephew, to live again, forget, forgive? It won't work.
Yes, that was Alex Berhanu giving his thoughts on the situation that is going on in Tigray, and you will see many more. And okay, and for those of you who have managed to tune in, please keep watching. This channel is for you. We want to make it better. You can send us your suggestions, tell us where we need to improve. We will do all that. Now, this program is going to be available on YouTube, on AIL TV, YouTube, and but also the conversation must continue on social media. So let me just appeal to you. If you feel that you want to see something here on AIL TV, let us know. We will go out there and get it for you. But also you have to remember, AIL TV does not take no sides, is not affiliated with any political party or any government. We actually try to give you the information, what is going around us in the diaspora, and probably issues just affecting us back in Africa. Now, before I go, let me show you. I have got my t-shirt here. I think you might see it. It is called, "It is not easy to be African." And do you know why? You will find out the reason why I say it is not easy to be African. Africa is bleeding as we speak. We have got a situation going on in Cameroon. Nigeria is not stable. South Africa is not doing all that great. Zimbabwe is the same. We have got a situation in Somalia. Uganda is the same. So when I hear people talk about let us unite Africa, I'm always asking myself, Kwame Nkrumah, Nyerere, Jomo Kenyatta, Ben Ali, all these people, they were talking about uniting Africa. I know 60 years of independence is not enough. I'm sure we will get there. At least the conversation and the thoughts have been planted in our minds and in our heads that Africa must unite. But we have really to mean it. We have to, these words of African unite must mean something. Because what saddens me, I've even seen clips from social media, from the Pan-African Parliament. People are fighting. You have gone there to discuss issues that are affecting Africa, and then you end up fighting yourselves. Well, then I'm not sure if the international community, as we keep calling on international community to come and help us, how will they interfere if we keep on fighting ourselves? But until then, I have just to sign off. I will be back again next week with another great interview. Keep watching AIL TV. Until then, ciao.